stable.org. So now I'm going to talk about Kentucky's program, Stable Kentucky, and actually these slides come from the Treasurer's Office. From OJ kindly sent them to me. So, and I think Ohio sent them to you. So we've got, yeah, that's right. That's right. So I reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So you can see the website. I'm also going to go to the website for Kentucky's program, but it's stablekentucky.com. So what is Stable Kentucky? So Stable Kentucky is Kentucky's ABLE program. It's offered to Kentuckians through a partnership with the Ohio Stable Accounts Program. It's administered by the Treasurer of Kentucky, Allison Ball, and it was launched in December of last year. And so the benefits, and this will be true of any ABLE program, the account is owned by the person with the disability, regardless of who sets it up or helps them set it up. So it's in their name and Social Security number. It does dramatically increase the ability for the person to save without jeopardizing their means-tested benefits. It provides new investment, and I would say educational opportunities, to Dave's point, to help people develop a financial identity around there is something more than a savings account, that really you could participate in the market, which recently has been just kind of off the charts in a good way. These tax-free earnings, again, the money can will grow tax-free, and as long as when you take it out, you're using it for a qualified disability expense, then there's no penalty or taxes, and then anyone can contribute to the account. Now, who can have one? So I am going to go to the website here in a minute, but just know that for those people who are, you see the 3 paths to eligibility. So people who are already on SSI, Supplemental Security Income, or SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance due to disability, are automatically eligible. But there are lots of families who want to open accounts for their children who are not on Social Security benefits. So there is a way to go through a little quiz and establish eligibility through the online portal. But bullet number 2 is really important to note, in that disability has to occur prior to the age of 26. Which will be true for the folks that many of us are concerned about who have intellectual and developmental disabilities, but does impact those people who have acquired brain injuries or may have experienced a stroke or or a disability as a result of illness who were over the age of 26, okay? Now, actually, Congress has considered, or I believe a bill has been introduced that would expand, would expand that age to 46, but just know that that's not the case right now. But just know there's conversation around that. And so this is just some more information about the eligibility certifications. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that today. Just know that there's lots of information on the website. So how do I enroll? So online, all of these accounts, and again, Kentucky, Ohio, wherever you would decide to enroll or open an account, you don't go there. You don't even go to the Treasurer's Office. You go online, and it will require that the person have an email account, which actually for a lot of the folks that I know with an intellectual and developmental disability means they're going to have to create one. I mean, those of us in the room, those of you online may have up to 3, like Dave has a defunct one. But there are any number of folks that, maybe because, again, limited literacy skills, just don't have one. So they'll need one. It is free. Karen Perch would dispute the 20 minutes, but yes, she would dispute that. But how about it's doable?
But that was partly because we had to first
create an email. So Karen has helped someone open a stable account, but the person did not have an email address. They didn't have their banking information, so that created some of the time. So I, as my friend Linda's power of attorney, I could open an account for her as I'm an authorized legal representative. I meet that criteria up there, so I could do that on her behalf. And then funding your account. So it's going to be via electronic funds transfer or check, although I believe the initial enrollment is online. You have to initially at least put $50 into the account to open an account. So that would be drafted out of a bank account. This $14,000 annual limit is true for every program. That's federal. That's true whether it's Ohio's or Kentucky's or Michigan's or wherever. Now, the lifetime limit depends on states. That varies by state. So Kentucky's, that's based on how much money families could put into one of those 529 plans. So that's a whole lot of money. But remember, $14,000 a year. Somebody couldn't go and dump $400,000 into an ABLE account. That's important for you to understand. I'm sure a lot of you have been sitting on $400,000 waiting to do that, but in any event, So it's a lifetime limit. And this gifting, I think, is just very, very creative and brilliant. So you could create an e-gift event. So for example, then family members or others that you hope might contribute to the account could be sent information saying, hey, if you'd like to for my birthday, instead of, giving me whatever, would you make a contribution to my ABLE account? So it's set up to do that. And then the system would actually send thank you notes to contributors. Now, this is another aspect that, again, requires financial education. And you would want to do your due diligence. And again, I'll show you online where you can do this. But you need to make a decision when you open an account, and even if you put the $50 in there, so where's it going to go? These are not bank accounts. They're not bank accounts. All of the states they're through financial services companies. So they're really investment accounts. Although the stable program does have what's called principal protected option. Now, who here besides my colleagues from the Treasurer's Office and Karen Perch knows what that means? Exactly, Deb. It would not eat into the principal. So the principal, that's your money, not your principal from your high school. This is your money is called principal. So it's protected. Now, it also wouldn't grow. Or maybe it's a smidgen, but it's not one of the investment choices. So you would need to read online. You've got these 4 choices of aggressive to conservative, but you're not picking specific mutual funds. So for those of you who have retirement accounts and you've gone in, my colleagues here at the University of Kentucky, you're with Fidelity or TIAA CREF, when you go to select where you want your retirement money to go, you have to make a specific selection of a particular mutual fund. Vanguard's done the hard work for you. They're saying if you want to have a great deal of risk, just click this category and Vanguard's going to select the funds for you. I hope that doesn't scare you, in other words, but you do need to decide where you'd want your money to go. So how can you spend your money? So withdrawals must be used, again, on qualified disability expenses. And so it's anything that relates to your disability and helps to maintain or improve your health, independence, or quality. And here are some general category areas. And I'm going to go to the website because actually there are a few more that are listed on the website. Now, this is important to me for people to understand going into this, that if you make a non-qualified expenditure, and again, Vanguard or the Stable Kentucky program isn't going to tell you that. You request money, I'm assuming, they're going to send it to you. They're going to send it, or they're going to load it onto a stable card. So it's not illegal, but there are consequences. So it could maybe affect your benefits. We really don't know. We don't have enough time to know. We don't know what Medicaid might ask you for. But what we do know is that it is the responsibility of the beneficiary or his or her legal representative to keep receipts. So if the IRS comes knocking, or Medicaid at your eligibility determination or your recertification says, so I see you have an ABLE account, what did you spend it on? And they could ask you, you're going to need to be able to produce receipts showing what you spent it on. And so there's some examples here of what the tax consequences could be. That would be true, again, of 529 accounts. So again, the IRS is giving families and people the opportunity to save tax-free, but there are some parameters around that when you go to spend the money. So there's no fee to withdraw money. There's no limits. Obviously, you can only withdraw what you put in. And again, the Stable Kentucky will not ask what you spend on, but benefits agencies and the IRS can. The money would be transferred to a personal checking or savings account, or to what I think is just fabulous, is to your own stable card. So this is a loadable debit card. It doesn't actually pull, the money would be loaded onto it from the account. It would give you online spending records and notate expenses. You can't commingle this with other funds. So you can't take money out of your ABLE account and then go, I guess, stick it somewhere else. You've got to be able to document where that money went. So for example, for my friend Linda, if I open an ABLE account, she wears transition lenses glasses. They're $400. She doesn't get them every year, but every few years need to get a new pair. So she could save for her transition lenses glasses, let's say, as well as maybe some other things. When she goes to purchase those, then we get the money loaded onto her stable card. She'd go to LensCrafter and present her stable card and be able to pay for her glasses. So There's limiting of merchants, there's no cash access, and there's no overdraft. So there's some protections there again about how expenses could hopefully only be used for qualified disability expenses. So some considerations if a person is on SSI or supplemental security income. So if people save and then also the balance grows, so again, this is contributions and growth are over $100,000, not just contributions, but contributions and growth could count as a resource, but for SSI, if there's a cash payment, that cash payment would merely be suspended, not terminated. So the person could still maintain their Medicaid eligibility, but their cash payment would stop. And then if you hold on to the money from one calendar month to the next, then housing expenditures and non-qualified expenditures count as resources. So again, if somebody's going to take money out of the ABLE account to pay those basic housing expenses, they need to do that. Does that make sense? You dump in, like my friend Linda, her rent and utilities is 500 something a month. So if I were to somehow start to open an ABLE account, put money in there for that, want to spend it on to pay her rent and her utilities, I would need to get it out of there. Does that make sense? Well, she's not on SSI, but if she were, I need to put it in and take it and make sure it was spent on that expense. And then with Medicaid, unlike with SSI, your account balance will not affect your Medicaid benefits regardless of the amount, up to, I guess, that $400,000 threshold. Now, what you do need to understand, and this will be true when I talk, it will be similar when I talk about first-party special needs trust accounts, there is a Medicaid payback provision. This is the person's money. So Medicaid is saying, we will exclude this during your lifetime. But when you die, there could be Medicaid estate recovery, but first, you could pay any outstanding bills that remain for qualified disability expense. You could pay for funeral and burial expenses if you hadn't done that already. And then if you were participated in the Medicaid buy-in program here in Kentucky, you could deduct those. And then this is an important distinction from the other things I'm going to talk about, but the payback is only from the date the account was opened, not from the time the person qualified for Medicaid. So the account cost, the online enrollment is free. You do need $50 to open an account. You want to note that there's a monthly maintenance fee of $5. So if you put in 50, you'd want to put in more, obviously, or otherwise in 10 months, you'd have nothing. So that would be an incentive to save.
Which
Yes.
is great. Something new starting in April. The account that will be a maintenance fee will only be $3.50.
Well, awesome. So have changed the slide.
Yes.
All right. So wait till April. Maybe wait till April. These asset-based fees, this is how Vanguard gets paid. And those are really very, very reasonable. That's very reasonable for having somebody figure out how to make your money work smart for you. That's very reasonable in my personal opinion. So some additional helpful resources if you want to jot this down. Again, you can find this on the website, but here's the 800 number. Open from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here's an email address for customer service, and then stablekentucky.com. And actually, I'm just going to take us to that website. And so this is what I would encourage you all to do, because really everything that's in this PowerPoint is, I'd say, OJ, is on this website.
PowerPoint itself is actually literally on the website.
Okay, well, there you go. I didn't know that. Where could they find the PowerPoint?
You scroll all the way down to resources.
Well, there's that. There's your email. There's your phone number.
Forms. Let's see.
Maybe we'll click and see if we can find it real quick. There we go. There's a brochure. There's the PowerPoint presentation.
It's all right there for you.
There you go. Thank you. I'm glad to know that. Did not know that. So just again, I want to look at qualified disability expenses because there are some additional categories that are listed here that aren't on the slide. So here are the category areas, and then you click here to learn more, and you can. So again, the definition of what is a qualified disability expense, and then the categories. But one of the ones I think that's not on the other one is this health prevention and wellness. I don't think that's on the slide. So there are a lot of things here that could qualify as qualified disability expenses. Assistive technology, personal support, and then again, telling you just up front, you know, it's up to you to track how you spend your money. So again, I think this is part of people developing a financial identity, financial responsibility that goes with having this opportunity. So stablekentucky.com. And again, in the Dropbox, I've given you the one-page brochure that, again, reiterates a lot of this and gives you the website again. And so you can find information on Facebook and also on Twitter. So, but what if And these are just a few what ifs, but these are ones that have came to my mind. But what if the person became disabled after the age of 26 and they have excess resources? Can they have an ABLE account? Shake your head no. Not today. No. Remember, the eligibility is up to age 26. If the disability occurred after that, then they're not eligible to open an ABLE account. Or what if an eligible person, somebody who could have an ABLE account, and this occurred at a training, I do training for employment specialists to help people find jobs. And one of them shared that one of their clients walked into a gas station, got a scratch-off ticket worth $25,000. So can you put $25,000 into an ABLE account? Very good. No. Well, I mean, you could put how much? How much could they put in? 14,000. So there are other things you could do with that 11 related to those, exclusions. Maybe if they can drive, or if they have somebody who'll drive for them, maybe they could go buy a car. I'm not much fun. I really recommend you take care of your final expenses, because I don't know who's going to do that. But what I know happened, because I asked, is evidently this man spent $25,000 in a month, and I don't know on what. But that could not have been wise, because I don't think it was a car or a house. I mean, you could maybe go buy a house real quick. So that's what's wonderful about both ABLE accounts and then what I'm going to talk about now. There are places where people now, you really could put money and think about it. Or those of you who are parents in the room or listening online, what if you want to leave your home? Or I know of parents who've bought a home, they've bought a condo for their adult child with a disability, and they want to leave that to their child when they're gone. Well, you can't put that in an ABLE account. An ABLE account isn't an estate planning tool, and that you can't leave something directly to it any more than you could leave something directly to your retirement account. Or just what if, for whatever reason, the person doesn't need or want to use the money for disability related expenses? So what are some other options? So I have a red exclamation point behind this, because I've been in seminars or heard webinars where it seems like people kind of diss one or the other, and that's just foolish. I mean, these are great tools. They just can serve some different purposes. So I want to just talk really briefly about the differences, and this is on the comparison chart that you can download, but the differences between ABLE accounts and special or supplemental needs trusts. So ABLE accounts, because they're 529A accounts, have the ability that money can grow tax advantaged. It can grow tax free. Again, if you put $14,000 in there, and people put $14,000 in there every year, you have a 3 or 4 year old child, and you could do that for 20 years and it was invested, you might not even need the LP waiver. I mean, seriously. I know there are families that can do that, or between mom and dad and aunts and uncles and brothers and, just people that could do that. And so that would be a significant amount of money after 20 some odd years. In terms of the person having that kind of resource to really, really launch a young adult's life. Whereas money that would be invested through a special or supplemental needs trust, the gain could be taxable. You have this $14,000 limit. Now you need to know that that's based on, and do I have this right, Karen, the gift tax exclusion. The gift tax exclusion. So that was $14,000 last year. That's $14,000 this year. It might go up next year, but it wouldn't go up to like 50. It might jump by 500 or something. Okay. So you do not have that limit on the amount of money that could be contributed to what I'm going to try to help you understand is the difference between a first party or a third party special needs trust or a third party supplemental needs trust, which is not that limit. So I had an email actually 2 weeks ago, I think I sent this to OJ, that where an employment specialist contacted me that one of their clients, now the client has an acquired brain injury, so it dawned on me they might even be over the age of 26, but they were going to receive a personal injury settlement of $200,000. So yes, if they are under that age 26, they could put some of that into an ABLE account, right? But not all of it. So see, they might use both. And again, so it's eligibility criteria. You don't have that with the other. And then the funds are to be used for qualified disability expenses. With special or supplemental needs trusts, you just have some other options available to you, because the trust itself is a legal entity. So as a legal entity, it could own property. So it could own a property, or it could be left property. It could be, in the case of the third-party supplemental needs trust, as my friends over here, the Smiths, have done, people can purchase life insurance, and that would fund this third-party supplemental needs trust upon the death of the parents. Or it could be left a portion of an estate. And it doesn't have that restriction around qualified disability expenses because, again, the gain is not tax-free. You see the difference? If the IRS is going to give you tax-free gain, then they're going to give some restrictions on what you can spend it on. That's just kind of that just tends to be the way the IRS, to some extent, at least in this case, with 529A plans work. That's not true of your retirement accounts. You don't have restrictions on those to what you can spend your money on, but there's some, you got limits on when you can take it out. You got to get to be old like me. So in any event, so I want to talk about the difference between, we're going to use the terminology again to help you, educate you. First party special needs trust. This is when the money belongs to the person with a disability. They are the first party. So that client of the employment specialist, let's say her name was Jane, that when she gets that $200,000, it's her money. It's her money. So it belongs to her. So where that money could come from, again, could be, there are people who work, and I maintain if you don't own a car and you don't have children, you might have money at the end of the month. I mean, you just might. My personal opinion. Or maybe you don't own a house, you know, I mean, it just doesn't cost as much to live. So there are people who just can't spend it. How many big screen TVs do you need, you know, or you've got your final expenses paid for, maybe you've done the trip of a lifetime, but in any event, you can't stay under that resource limit. Or people, as Karen and I know very well, parents don't know how to plan or don't plan. We get emails from case managers all the time. Someone has died and has left someone the beneficiary of a $50,000 life insurance policy. So again, that's more than two. Or again, my example, it could be a personal injury lawsuit, or it could be that Social Security, there's an overpayment, and that's a little complicated to explain why, but just know that can happen, believe it or not. Someone could end up essentially with a back payment from Social Security that, again, is they're going to get a check for X amount of money, and you got to figure out what to do with it. And so, like ABLE accounts, there is Medicaid payback or estate recovery. When that person dies, if there's still money in that account, Medicaid could have a claim. The difference is that this goes back to when the person became eligible for Medicaid. See the difference? ABLE accounts is just from the time the ABLE account was opened. Am I correct?
I'm not sure about that.
She's not sure about that. All right, well, we'll let the attorney think about that. She'll think about that. She's going to think about that. Let's just say for both of them, you just need to understand the idea would be to spend it. How's that? You know, I mean, you're going to put money in an ABLE account. You're going to have money in a first party. I mean, it really would be to spend it to increase people's independence, to have a good quality of life. That there is a part where you might want to save and, you know, accumulate, but then at some point you're looking to spend, you know, to really create that life for that person. Third party supplemental needs trust. This is when the money belongs to someone else. So this would be typically parents, or could be grandparents, could be other family members. So the money belongs to someone other than the person with a disability. And so I just mentioned all those people, didn't I? And with this, there is no Medicaid payback because the money never belonged to the person with a disability. With the other two, the money belongs to the person with a disability. With the third-party supplemental needs trust, again, it's to supplement what public funds won't pay for, there's not Medicaid payback or estate recovery. Now, actually, Karen, if you're going to the ARC of Kentucky conference, Karen's going to be doing a 3-hour. I'm doing something that really should be done in about 3 hours. I'm kind of doing it in about 45 minutes. Because there's a lot of complexity. I'm going to let them get up here in a minute and let you ask some questions. But consultation around your specific family member, in my opinion, means you typically need to make an appointment or a phone call. Because there's a lot of individual issues around this kind of planning, okay? But just to understand that these are tools, if you can think of it like a tool belt, these are tools to help people plan, to develop a financial identity, and also to safeguard and protect the quality of life for someone. So I'm going to kind of review what I've already said. In first party, it's the person with a disability, a family member, legal guardian, or court can establish. So some people actually work with an attorney in a given community to petition the district court in that area to set up such a first party special needs trust, or they can open an account with a pooled special needs trust. And a pooled special needs trust, I'm going to talk about our trust here in Kentucky, but there are several other national trusts. Essentially, the pool trust has done the legal work for you. You're essentially joining it. So I use the example of, there may be those of you here who have a swimming pool out your backyard, above ground, in ground. But there are people who do. So that you've taken the responsibility to build it, to dig it, to, you know, to maintain it, but then you have immediate access to it. You could go out at 2 in the morning and go swimming. Or you could be like me. I do think, they've left, but I do think swimming's therapeutic. And I joined the Y. But I can't go at 2 in the morning. I did go yesterday morning at 6:30 because I just needed to go swimming. I did, and I had to be in Louisville by 9 or 9:30. But I joined the Y, and it is open at 5:30. And I pay a fee. But I didn't have to build the pool. I don't maintain the chemicals. I have no responsibility for it. I could just go swimming. So a pool trust is like that. You're going to join it. And like the Y, there's going to be a fee to join it. And so third party, again, or what's called grantor, and I'm giving you these words because if you work with an attorney, that's what they're going to use. Okay, so just put on your big girl pants or big boy pants and you can understand this. So that's set up and funded by someone other than the person with a disability, again, as of this year. And I put that in there every year because who knows? I mean, who knows? But at the moment, anything that was in that trust would not have Medicaid estate recovery. So Karen and I both know of families that have bought homes, left it. It will go into a third-party supplemental needs trust or has gone into a third-party supplemental needs trust upon their death. And so when that person with a disability dies, their trust document says what happens. You might go to other children, might go to grandchildren, might go to a charity. So the person, the grantor, that's who's granted or put the asset or the money into the trust, gets to decide. I think I just said that. So again, just a little comparison. The sources of government funding typically pays for these things, and then ABLE accounts obviously could be put here too. Well, for some of these things. So certainly money from an ABLE account, medical dental care would certainly be a qualified disability expense. Don't see gifts. I know of a young woman actually was at the ABLE press conference and wanted to know if she could use money from an ABLE account to buy Christmas presents for her family. Well, no. The money in the ABLE account would be for her, not for Christmas presents, but I mean for her for qualified disability expenses. You could use money for technology. That certainly would most likely qualify under ABLE. Vacations and trips, I think you'd have to figure out whether there's an educational component, and as a prudent person, I'd be pretty thoughtful about that. But you could use money from a special or supplemental needs trust to do that. Additional services and supports. Met with a woman yesterday, really am encouraged her to open an ABLE account. Actually, and hopefully she will. But anyway, she needs more personal care than she can get through the Michelle P. waiver. And she's working full time. And I said, you need to open an ABLE account and start saving. And she has family who might be willing to contribute to that, and then she would have additional money that she could use to hire, support services. And then personal hygiene grooming costs could come out of this. And there's much more, but that's just some broad categories. So there are, as there are with ABLE accounts, there are national pooled trusts that families could explore. But our experience was that by and large, people just kind of I think that's why I'm so glad we have a program in Kentucky. I just think people need something homegrown. I just do. So actually, Karen and I were involved 2011, started to try to work. I've been trying since 1999 to get a pool trust in Kentucky, but we started again in 2011 and we're able to create a pooled special needs trust called Life Plan of Kentucky, only serves Kentucky residents. There is an enrollment fee, obviously, that's different than an ABLE account, but again, people who would need a first party account or a third party account have money. They would, in other words, that person has the $200,000, she'll pay some enrollment fee based on her income, but she obviously has money, right, to do that. And then there are also trustee and management fees related to that, similar in that the money through Life Plan is also invested through wealth management companies here in Lexington. So I'd like just to go, I think I'm doing great here in terms of time, to Life Plan's website, because again, like the Stable Kentucky, anything I've talked about is on this website, I'd say for the most part, including we do have a presentation. It's a Prezi presentation about Life Plan that you could look at again. That again would pretty much explain what it is that I've talked about. So I think I'll just go through it real quickly. So any pooled special needs trust by federal legislation has to be operated by a 501c3 nonprofit. And we provide trustee services for people with disabilities and their family, and education and guidance regarding long-range planning. And then we created it, and this is pre-ABLE accounts. Again, remember, ABLE Act wasn't passed until 2014, and so this has been an issue for a long time. And so there are folks that have excess resources that, again, didn't have that as an option, but could open up an account with Life Plan, as well as families who might want to do that in order to have some of the advantages of a pooled special needs trust, which includes professional management of the funds, that the request when you want money out are reviewed to make sure they comport with Medicaid and don't create issues for people about their benefits. And also, unlike banks, Life Plan will manage small amounts of money. Similar with an ABLE account, again, $50 to open an account. I mean, that's awesome. So we have a volunteer board of directors that includes family members, financial advisors, human service professionals. Again, that's a picture of me with my friend Linda, one of her amazing support folks. And again, essentially, you join it. You sign an agreement. There's a one-time enrollment fee. The funds are held by partner financial institutions, and then a management fee is charged monthly based on the amount in the account. And then to get money out, we don't do this online. There is a distribution request, so it can be done by email, it could be faxed in, it could be, and also by phone. And then once the requests are approved, payment is typically made, unlike ABLE where the money goes back to the person, it's made to the vendor. Typically, it's made to the vendor. And then here's our contact information.